Okay, so today we're going to talk about the gay agenda. Just want you to know that this is not about any person or group, but we're going to focus on how the media treats alternative lifestyles and sexuality and what we can learn from that. So I support LGBTQ brothers and sisters. So this video will critique the machine and not anybody in particular. So the first question is, how did the rainbow get associated with the LBGT? So before the rainbow flag, there were various symbols that were used to represent this group, such as a pink triangle. But what happened? The people that were using the pink triangle took their triangle back. So they had to come up with something different. So what they came up with was a rainbow. So the rainbow is what represents the whole movement. And as you'll see coming up, the rainbow actually means something. So every color in the rainbow means something else. So the flag was designed by Gilbert Baker. And if you see, hot pink is for sex, red is for life, orange for healing, yellow for sunlight, green for nature, turquoise is for magic and art, indigo is for serenity, and violet is for spirit. So each one of these colors in the flag actually means something. So there's a lot of thought put into it when Baker made up that flag. So I thought it was really interesting. And I wanted to get past the educational stuff. Then we'll talk about the good stuff once we get an understanding of how everything works. So what does it mean to be LGBTQ? So just keep in mind that this is talking about sexuality or orientation or what the person prefers sexually. So sexuality is different from gender. And we're going to talk about the sexuality first, and then we'll go into the gender to make sure everybody understands. So the first thing is a lesbian. We know that a lesbian is a woman who is primarily attracted to women. Gay, you're a man who's primarily attracted to men. Bisexual means you can be attracted to people of their own and the opposite gender. Transgender is a person whose gender identity differs from their assigned sex at birth. Now, transsexual is kind of an outdated term, but it was originated in the medical community for people who have permanently changed their sex. Queer is just a term that could mean anybody that falls under this umbrella. If you're questioning, you don't really have a term yet, you don't identify with anything, but you're trying to find out. Intersex is an individual whose sexual anatomy or chromosomes do not fit with the traditional markers of female and male. So we're going to go with those again. So it was a researcher, his name was Kinsey. So he came up with a scale. He did a lot of studies in the 70s, came up with a scale. So these are some of the statistics. So the population can basically be broken down into six numbers plus zero. So it's seven numbers. So each part of the population is one of these numbers. Now, if you're exclusively heterosexual, you have a zero. And if you're exclusively homosexual, you have a six. So most people fall somewhere in the category. Now, what is your number? Now, remember, everybody can't be exclusively heterosexual because that's only 1/6 of the population. And everybody can't be exclusively homosexual because that's 1/6. So most of the people fall in the middle somewhere. All right, so now let's talk about sexual orientation. There are a lot of different sexual orientations that we're going to talk about. So let's take a look at them now. Heterosexual, we know what that means. That means a man who likes a woman, or a woman that likes a man. A lesbian is two women, like we explained together. We know that gay means two men. And I want to talk about something else that you maybe never heard of. So heteroflexible, this is a term used to describe someone who primarily identifies as heterosexual, but occasionally experience attraction to individuals of the same gender. So he's flexible, but he's hetero. Now we have a homoflexible. So just like the heterosexual, homoflexible is a term used to describe someone who primarily identifies as homosexual, but occasionally experience attractions to individuals of a different gender. Androsexual is someone who is primarily attracted to masculinity or masculine presenting people, regardless of their gender. So they could be attracted to men, non-binary individuals, or anyone who exhibits masculine traits or masculine appearance. Objectum sexual, also known as objectphilia, that is a sexual orientation that involves romantic and sexual attractions to inanimate objects. So people who identify as objectum sexual may develop emotional, romantic, and sexual relationships with objects like cars, bridges, trains, words, fences, statues, and even electronic soundboards. Pansexual is a term used to describe someone who experiences sexual, romantic, or emotional attraction to people regardless of their gender or gender identity. So this just emphasizes that gender is not a determining factor to their attraction to others. Sapiosexual. Okay, so the sapiosexual is for all my nerds out there. So they're turned on by intellect. They are attracted to intelligence, and this takes precedence over looks, gender, age, or religion. So if you're smart, you are the sapiosexual's ideal partner. Pause. So, like I was saying earlier, there is a difference between sexual preference and gender, and they do not have to correlate. Gender is a multifaceted concept that goes beyond the simple binary classification of male and female. It does include a wide range of identities. Gender identity is a person's deep felt internal experience of their own gender, which may be male, female, or somewhere in between. Gender expression is the external manifestation of one's gender identity. So it's typically expressed through behavior. Now, here are some of the different genders that we have on here, and all of them have a different sign. So just take a minute to look over these because we have every gender right here that is represented by a sign. And as you can see, the female sign is the sign with the cross, and the male sign is the sign with the arrow. So this is a good reference to look over. Now, if you're gender questioning, you can be exploring whether your gender identity aligns with the sex you are assigned to. So you're questioning, you're trying to find yourself out and trying to find your gender or what feels more comfortable for you. Trans refers to individual whose gender identity differs from the sex they were assigned with at birth. So this can include trans men, trans women, and non-binary people. Third gender. These people consider themselves not a male or a female, but a total third gender. They do not fit into the binary gender system. Androgynous. Androgynous is a term used to describe a blend of both masculine and female characteristics in a person's appearance, identity, or expression. Fashion choices, behavior, and appearance is included. A demi-boy. A demi-boy doesn't identify as all male. There's some female mixed in with different variations. So according to the demi-boy, they can have different variations from person to person. Gender fluid. If you're gender fluid, that means you change your gender based on the situation. So someone who is gender fluid can use the male and female bathroom, or they could change their gender as needed to play sports or to get into a all-woman social club. Bigender is a gender identity that describes someone who is identified as having two distinct genders. These genders can be experienced simultaneously or may alternate at different times, but they're half and half, and you never really know what's going to come out. It could be the male side or the female side. Okay. Sometimes you can't even tell. This is a trans right here, but you can't tell. Non-binary. So non-binary is a term used to describe a gender identity does not fit within the traditional binary understanding of male and female. Non-binary individuals may experience a gender that blends elements of both genders. And some people just choose not to identify with any orientation or gender. They're just them, and they don't want to make a choice as to what they are. They don't choose to identify. Now, expression. Different people have different forms of expression. You might see some people that like to dress up for their expression. Some people like to dance for their expression. Some people like to play, act, or impersonate other people for their expression. And that's fine because everybody has a different way of expressing themselves. Now, you got to realize that some people may choose not to express. So it's important to respect their wishes as well. Just as others have the right to express themselves, if you don't want to express or tell your business, you also have the right not to express yourself. So I notice that sometimes in this community, it's a lot of hard people put hard stuff on the people that choose not to, but it's their choice, just like it's the person's choice that chooses to share theirs. So how can we tell if it's an agenda? There's a difference between being supportive and encouraging predictive behavior. So let's talk about this agenda. So there is an agenda with the powers that be, with the news, with everything to kind of, I think, to push this agenda. So sometimes it's subtle. Like if you look right here, Charlemagne, every day when he comes on, he has these dolls. These two men dolls are always in a different sexual position and they're naked. So next time you watch the Breakfast Club, look at the show, and every day there's going to be a different doll. So that's real subtle, and that's something that that we can look for too. Sometimes it is subtle. Sometimes it's all up in your face. We have Little Nas X here. My question is, I'm not doubting that he is LGBTQ, but I wonder if he decided to market himself like that, or if the record company is pushing him to do this because this is a good way to sell. This the agenda is on now. It's kind of cool to be one of these people. So I'm just wondering how far to go. Now, sometimes they get caught. So we see Puffy and Meek Mill right here. I don't think they necessarily wanted to everybody to know, but sometimes they get caught. And so that's how we know about them. So between the people getting caught, the people that are pushing it, and then the celebrities with children. So we're going to talk about children in a minute because one of the main motivations, I think, for the agenda is starting very early with the kids. So one way to push the agenda is to have our idols practice the desired behavior, and the sheep will soon follow. So I see a lot of rappers in dresses. We're seeing this so often now. And my thing is, I don't think that they're doing it on purpose. Some of them might once it catches on, but I wonder how much are they paying these rappers to go out and wear a dress, just like Most Def. He doesn't even look comfortable. It doesn't look natural. So I'm just wondering what motivated him to do this. So now being LGBTQ is trendy. So to someone who has felt isolated, it can be a game changer for them. So there are good aspects and bad aspects of the agenda. So is it nature or nurture? Perception has changed a lot over the last 10 years. The agenda is in the media so much that it's become accepted by the mainstream. This may have some effect on the raw numbers. Now, I do think that someone who's undecided that's on the borderline can be pushed or pressured to act out on those feelings just because it's more acceptable now. So that can be a good thing as long as it's what the person wants to do and they're not trying to do it for peer pressure. Children shouldn't be sexualized. At 5 or 6, a child is not qualified to make decisions about sexuality and gender. What if it's a stage? What if the child is really not LGBTQ and just wants to fit in a certain group? Next year, they might have different friends, or they might find out later that they really weren't gay. So some people are stuck on making these kids make decisions, and it's not right to sexualize children, especially when they're 5 or 6 years old. Let them have their childhood. Parents are losing control over how to raise their kids. So now you can be jailed for not allowing your 5-year-old to start sex change therapy if they say that they want a sex change. Parents are stuck and they have to let the child do it by law. So it's almost like we're losing control over our kids. So what would a 5-year-old know about sexuality? The powers that be are promoting this agenda through mass media, celebrities, and even the cringe new sex education classes that start in elementary school now, complete with photographs, pictures of all kinds of sex. Our kids are losing their innocence by law. So your wife is okay, but hide your kids because Big Brother wants them on his team. So would you sell your child knowing how the industry is? So we see these industry people, and it's sort of a big percentage of those who have kids that are transgender. So I know it's a Hollywood thing. So I think it is more in Hollywood. We got Snoop Dogg right here, Snoop's son. They look exactly alike. Snoop looks like somebody's grandma. You got to remember that acceptance is different than encouragement. So you can accept somebody without putting everybody's face and encouraging it. So we have Magic Johnson and his offspring. So why all the media attention? It almost seems like when they decide to do this, I like Caitlyn Jenner, that they get more media attention. Now celebrities are pushing the agenda with their own kids. So, here's Wade. We see his son, and this has been in the news all the time. It's like they are really pushing them to do that. So I just want to know what the motivation is. Is it money? Is it stardom? What is it? But it's definitely something that's going on. So what about the kids, the Smith kids? They went from these children to these children. Could it be genes? Could it be coincidence? Or is it the agenda? Because both kids turned out to be LGBTQ. So it's definitely something going on in Hollywood. So this is when people start to abuse the system. It's getting more and more common to see members of the community having a false sense of entitlement. A lot of them may think that you owe something, and this entitlement has been building up a lot lately. Now, it's one thing to get your respect, but they sometimes assume that someone knows what their pronoun preference is. If you dress like a man and look like a man, somebody's going to automatically call you he. And this is the problem right here because it's getting more common to see these men in women's bathrooms. They're not dressed like women. They don't look like they're about to go through the surgery. Like this man, he's a regular man with a cell phone and he's taking pictures in the women's bathroom. But all he has to do is say that he's going through the change and he's allowed to do that. So before we end, I just have one story. So I was an instructor, and there was a transgender man in my new hire class. Looking at him, you wouldn't be able to tell at all. He was about 6'3", 250 pounds, and he wore jeans and leather biker gear. He wore shades because he had an eye condition, and he also wore heels. So he would walk around with his heels and his biker gear on. So we had to let him use the bathroom. First day of class, they called me. They said, "You have somebody in your class. He wants you to call him by the female name, and he's going to be used in the women's bathroom." But because of some kind of HIPAA regulations, I wasn't able to tell anybody. So pandemonium soon ensued. Every few minutes or every time he left the room, we would hear women screaming because he would go into women's bathroom and use the women's bathroom. Couldn't tell the women about anything, but if they see this guy in the bathroom, they're going to scream. So it was a lot of issues that we had. So you can't judge a book by the cover. Let's just make sure we're being diligent. Let's stay diligent, y'all. You are what you are. Always make sure you're being you. Don't be influenced. Sound off.